like to say thank you, the organization and the director, to invite me to the great opportunity to give you a presentation about Korean modern poetry. So let's begin. My name is Yuhee Kim, as an introduction, and lecturer, Department of Korean Language and Literature, Kangwon National University. It just skipped. I just published Kim Soo-young's poetry about topos of freedom and the paradox of love. And the very first journal, my journal is about Lee Sang, the famous poet and also a novelist in Korea. And now I'm working on a research project about Bang No-hee, dialectical existence, and Kim So-wol, thought image, and Kim Gi-rim, a long poem. It's a kind of a poetry structure. Let's begin. And before the lecture, I have one notice. The poems cited in this article or presentation are mainly referenced from following books: David McQueen's Columbia Anthology of Modern Korean Poetry. I think the English is quite difficult for me, so I just take a reference of this book. Introduction. So Korean modern poetry, that's the title, right? So I have a question to you all. What do you think about modernity or Korean modern poetry? And when is it begin? When it begins, and where it begins, and what it begins? We have to look at history and function. So modernity, what is it? We'll look at a movie, older movie, Modern Times, 1963, 66, 36. I'm so sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. To examine modernity, what is it? We will look at the movie Modern Times. So take a look at it. Can you see the video clips?
Yes, we can see it, Professor.
Okay. Thank you. There's a lot of trails and factory and laborers. Okay, here you go. Oh my God. So in the movie, You can find a lot of factory. You can find a factory and a lot of laborers as work, like machine, right? So modernity came with the industrial revolution that occurred during the period from around 17,060 to about 18,020 and 18,040 in Europe, especially Great Britain. You know that, right? So the Industrial Revolution changed the way of living, the standard of living, and the speed of living, right? So the formation of living had to be changed, right? So people were changed and the world was also changed. New things were welcomed. That's the modernity. But the definition of modernity is quite different from scholars to scholars. So in my opinion, modernity is change of standard, change of people's consciousness toward the world. That's the modernity for me. What is the modern poetry? We can ask about the question. After World War First, from 19,014 to 19,018, people got shocked. They started not to believe humanity because of war. So the awareness about the life, awareness of humanity totally were changed. After World War First and World War Second occurred in a row from 19,039 to 19,045, right? You can see Adolf Hitler, the Austrian dictator, dominated all of the world, right? The Korean Peninsula was part of the World War II. People tried to think what the human being is and who we are and what the life should go on. The people started to think about value of life, how we live. So let's do summarize of modernity and modern Korean literature or poetry. It's a global issue under discussion and still a subject under discussion. And what is the important matter about modernity or modern poetry or modern literature in Korea? How to depict this word? How function? What kind of function does the Korean modern poetry for Korean Peninsula or for Korean people? So literature, especially poetry, short writing, the characteristic of Korean modern poetry is kind of a short writing and also song, right? Could it be an engagement to society? Could it be an attempt to restore humanity? That's the important method for people for the time being. With this problematic awareness in mind, we will examine what Korean modern poetry is. Let's start. So Korean modern poetry from 1910, prosody was changed from legitimate rhythm pattern and sound pattern to experimental and theoretical advances. As I mentioned, modernity changed a lot, changes people's awareness, and because of two different world wars, people doubt what we are and humanity, right? So the formation of poetry also changed to experimental and theoretical advances, especially sensuous imagism, metaphor, metonymy, allegory for the reality. So we're gonna, in detail, we're gonna look 5 different chapters. So first, 1897 to 1910, Enlightenment movement in Korea during the Korean Empire. That in that period, Korean modern poetry's formation has changed from legitimate or legitimate version to free verse or free style, and ignited a modern concept from traditional one to modern concept, right? And secondly, second chapter, we will examine Korean modern poetry as institutes, reforms, and spirits for Joseon people. Korean people at the period lost their country, so we could not use our own language. We learned Japanese language as mother language at the moment. It means Korean people thought something with Japanese language. As you might know, language is a way of thought, right? So at the moment, intellectuals, poets tried to write literature, artwork, or poetry in Korean language. So they took a lot of pressure from Japanese people. We will look at it that point in that chapter, second chapter. And third chapter, from 1945 to 1953, there's a Korean War and Korea's liberation period, and also Korea divided into 2 different nations, North Korea and South Korea. A lot of change, right? So the matter of this period was ideology, socialism or Marxism. The other hand, democracy or capitalism. And along with the ideology, the intellectuals and poets also divided into 2 different groups. So we will look at it. And facing with Korean War, poets suffered from the war, and they wrote poetry with a sense of scene at the moment. So we will just look at it in third chapter. And fourth chapter, after Korean War and division, 1960s, democratic revolution and dictatorship. In Korean history, there's three dictators from Lee Seungman Lee, Lee's first name, Lee's a family name, Seungman Lee, and Jong-hee Park, and Do-hwan the three different dictators. They are all president of Korea. So we will look at the political oppression, and in the political oppression, intellectuals and poets tried to find a way of freedom. So they tried to set up new social model or living attitude or for daily life with poetry, because there is a censorship, strong censorship. And lastly, from 1963 to 1990s, the general view of those period, we will just read one poem or two poems and the references. That's the composition of my presentation. So long explanation about the presentation. Okay, Korean modern history, we will look at it shortly. As I mentioned, Korea has historically experienced upheaval, such as Japanese colonial period, the period from, as I told you, 1910 to 1945. It's almost 35 years. Was it long for Philippine or short? What do you think about it? Please answer me.
I think it's short. It's a new.
It's quite short or quite long?
Quite long, certainly.
Yeah. Thank you. Quite long. So reimagine that if you were born 1910 and learn language, the mother language for you could be a Japanese, not Korean, right? So many Koreans turned into pro-Korean, pro-Japanese at the moment, 35 years. And the next liberation period, 1945, 1953. As I told you, World War II over in 1945, right? By US atom bombing on Nagasaki, Hiroshima in Japan, right? So Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial aura was leaning on United States, not by ourselves. That's the important. And the next, the Korean War period. Many orphans and homeless were occurred from 1950 to 1953. Almost 3 years long War. So the Korean War occurred right after the Japanese colonial era. So we Koreans, Korean men died a lot in a series of incidents. And right after the war, Seungman Lee took reign on Korean Peninsula from 1948 to 1916. And after the Lee Seungman Lee, Chung Il-pak, he is a soldier. He was a soldier, took the reign 1963 to 1979. And last one, he was also soldier, Do Han-jeon, 1980 to 1988. Totally 3 different military dictatorships. Here we go, almost 40 years long. So most common Korean people had been suffering under censorship and control, political control, and so on. And after that, from 1990s, democratic and cultural abundant period. Have you ever seen those pictures? 대장금, 서태지와 아이들, and 겨울연가. We call it Hallyu, the Korean cultural wave around the world. I call it Hallyu. So that's the short history about Korean history. Korean story about short story of Korean history. Sorry. BTS. Modern Korean poetry is still a subject under discussion, so it has got a flexible meaning. So Korean modern poetry is filled with many different voices and styles, subjects and views, moves and counter moves. So it's still a controversial discussion, under discussion. Next, we will look at the changes in Korean modern poetry along the changes in Korean history. The speed of my lecture is okay now?
Yes, Professor, it's okay.
Thank you for answering me. Okay. Modern Korean poetry is still a subject under discussion, plus of meaning. Chapter 1, Enlightenment movement during Korean Empire. Korean Empire ended in 1910 by forcible treaty. So before the treaty signed, Korean Empire intervened a lot of has got a lot of intervention from foreign commercial ships or foreigners since the late 8,000. So the first intervention incident is the General Sherman incident in 18,066. So the commercial merchant ship illegally attempt land on the Korean Peninsula, but they failed and went back their country. As I told you, late 8000, it was the period of industrial revolution, right? The world's atmosphere in the moment was to open their gate to the world, right? Right? Yes, yes. But Joseon Dynasty, Korean Empire, closed the gate from the mainstream of the world because protect the empire right, political region. That was why Korean people dominated by Japanese people, I think. And the second intervention from foreigners occurred 1871. We call it in Korean 신미양요. 신미양요. The United Expedition to Korea, it's 신미양요. So the first American military action occurred in Korea, especially Kangwon Island. So with this the first Korean expedition, the drama created. Have you ever watched it, Mr. Sunshine? No, it's first. So this drama started from the Shinmiyangyo incident. So if you get a chance to watch this drama series, I recommend to watch it because you can get accustomed to the history of Korean early history, modern early history. Right. So I would like to share a video clip with you right now. Is it okay? Okay. So one video clip from the drama, Mr. Sunshine. The title is 신미양요, the desperate war place. Is it playing now?
Yes, it's playing.
Thank you.
You can.
The boy in the level of common group. In the Xinmiang incident, U.S. military people attacked Korean common people. But the citizen, common people, common Korean people, didn't give up the Korea. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay. So, okay. Judy. So with this video clip, you may get an idea of at the moment Korean people's idea about the protection of Korea, right? They didn't give up the Korea. After that, after two different interventions from foreigners, Korea faced with a forced annexation in 1910 by Japan. So many Korean people, especially intellectuals and writers or poets, thought of us, oh, Korean people should learn language, should learn more. So the group of intellectuals and writers think of education as an important method to restore the country. So patriotic enlightenment movement occurred from intellectuals and writers. So that's the textbook, one page of textbook at the moment. So we try to, the intellectuals and poets and educational teachers, educators try to teach Koreans, especially youngest, to enhance ability of thought, to enhance a sense of global issue. So that movement had continued almost 5 years long. Okay. And at a time when alignment was important in terms of poetry, attempts in a new poetic form that deviated from the traditional poetry. New style poetry with free verse poem. So for example, we can read Namsan Che's poem From the Sea to Youth. Okay. Who's gonna read this poem instead of me? I've got 35 participants. Is there any voluntarily to read this poem? Anybody? Should I designate one name?
Maybe I can help you, Professor, look for someone.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any volunteers from our participants who would like to read the poem? You can raise your hand or open your mic.
It's
Don't
short.
be shy. It's very short.
It's short one.
Yes. Are there longer ones as Professor later? Okay, maybe we can.
In other side, there's a longer one.
Okay, so those who would like volunteer now.
I don't want to read by myself.
Anyone who wants to volunteer?
Abigail Renkoi, Mrs.
Oh, are you there?
Madame Abigail.
Yes.
Yes, Miss Abigail, can you read the
Would you read
poem?
this poem?
Okay, so should I read it all?
Yes.
All of this?
Yes.
Even these words here. Maybe I cannot read it properly. So sige. Who will not bow before me? There is no one. If you know of any, then tell me. Shi Huang, Emperor of Qin, Napoleon, all you others, whoever at all, you shall bow down before me. Come forward if you would test me. Chul Sok, Shiok, Tirurung Wa. Chul Sok, Shiok, Swa. There on the land, all the people, I despise them. The only ones I love, full of courage, are the pure-hearted youth. Come, then sweetly to my arms and be embraced. Come and let me kiss you. Chul sok, shuok, tururung wa.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. Look at the title of the poem, From the Sea to Youth, right? Okay. The charsok is a sound of wave. And the Chen Namson's this poem in Korean modern literature history, this poem was belonged to the origin of modern poetry, Korean modern poetry. Look, you can see the structure of poetry structure. The charsok is rapid. Charsok has a two in the very first line. It's repeated, right? It constructs kind of rhythm, regular rhythm of poetry, and also frame of the poetry, structure of poetry. So this is the very first a poem of Korean modern poetry, not traditional poetry. Okay, so this is the book of book of 해에게서 소년에게. Here. Here is the title. So at the moment, the style of writing of Korea from top to bottom and right to left. So this is the first of the sentence. 철석, 철석, like that. 철석, 철석. And the second sentence, left from here. 따린다, 무슨다, 뭐니 바란다. Here. It's the same way of Japanese style in the Chinese style. Okay, and it's just common sense to in Asian countries such as China and Japan and Korea. Same rule to write. And after that, chess, Namson chess from the sea to youth is an example, new style poetry. And at the beginning of modern poetry, as I told you. So what is important in the poem, it consists of 6 consecutive lines, actually in composition, and image. Image appeared very important composition of poetry, poetry. So sea and boy as important image in this poem. Sea as intention, authored intention to personify me or us. And a boy is create infinite power or newest. The theme is the creation of a new history that blooms in the bold and spotless mind of a boy through the vast space of the sea that's open to the world. So considering Enlightenment movement, Chen Hamsun's this poem also believe the people to enhance ability, and then people can save or people can restore the country is the sovereignty. And the second chapter, do we have time? Okay, the Japanese colonial aura. At the moment, poetry, Korean modern poetry, as introduced reforms or spirits for colonial people, the Joseon people. So 3 different policies by Japanese government to Korean Peninsula. From 1910 to 1990, military policy rule. So the government, Japanese government forced Joseon people, colonial people with military force. And secondly, in 1920s, the policy changed to cultural rule. Right after March 1st movement by Korean people. And thirdly, national extermination policy. Japanese government prohibit Korean people not to use Korean language, just allowing for Korean people to use Japanese language. as their mother language. So just skip. First period of military policy, we have to look at Li Guangsu Li. He is a poet and a novelist and critic. He is famous for his modern novel, The Heartless. You can see this one. This one, 무정, The Heartless, is considered as the beginning modern novel of Korea. And a literary critic article, What is the Literature? Published in newspaper Mail Shinbo from November 10 to 23rd of 1916. The article is really important to Korean modern literature. In the article, the Korean style institute literary reforms and spirits for colonial people. So he made a system of literature, and he divided literature genre such as essay, novel, poetry, and critic. It is really important, but after many years later, it turned to a pro-Japanese group. So and March 1st movement in 1919. This is a really important movement in Korean history because it's voluntarily demonstration and also non-violence demonstration by common people. And also it ignited a cultural policy. So let's look at the video clip. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it, Professor. Is the volume already maximized, Professor?
Yes. Ah, the sound, unfortunately.
The sound was not that
Okay.
audible, Professor, but maybe we can just send them the link afterwards
Okay.
so they can watch.
After that, after presentation, I will give you the address of this video clip. Is it
Mhm.
okay?
Yes, Professor. That would
Okay.
be okay.
Continue to lack of time, I think. So, move on. So the movement, the March 1st movement was failed, unfortunately. So, but Japanese government officials think of Joseon people, Korean people, is dangerous or dangerous. So they tried to change their policy from a military policy to cultural policy. So by adopting this policy, many Koreans were turning their political or social attitude toward Japan and Japanese people. So there were many pro-Japanese groups. So Lee Kwang's was one of them, unfortunately. So during this period, the poetry they also changed a lot. In the global world, influx of foreign literary trends and the introduction of translated poem has happened. So these changes ignited various influences on the literary creation field. Poets and intellectuals tried to construct ethnic identity. They tried to show ethnic identity by writing poems and creating a poetic formation of free verse as an institute reform style for Koreans. So we can mention of this phenomena with Kim So-wol, So-wol Kim, and Yohan Ju. Firstly, we will look at Yohan Ju as a romantic poem aimed at prose by destroying the stereotype traditional poetry. Yohan Ju as firework can be cited. So firework can be evaluated as one of the representative free poem in the early stage of Korean poetry development. 35 lines and in 5 consecutive compositions. So this poem was set in the early April of the lunar calendar with a scene of fire playing taking place. It's kind of traditional folk playing. In Daedong River, the poetic speaker misses his dead lover, while watching this fire play scene and suffers from people and objects do not know his sadness. However, at the end, it presented the will to live. Don't miss today. So it's quite long, but we're gonna read this poem. Who is going to read this poem voluntarily?
Do you have any volunteers?
Oh,
Sir-
raise
Sir
your hand.
Kenneth.
One, raise your hand.
Sir Kenneth, yes.
Yes, please.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning,
Morning.
Ma'am Kim. Fireworks. The day if warning in the western sky over the lonely river. The even pinkish glow is fading. When the sun sets, night will return without
죄송해요.
fail.
Sorry. Return.
Return without fail. No problem, ma'am. I weep alone beneath an apricot tree, but today is the 8th of April, and the sound of a crowd flooding the boulevard betokens festivities to come. So why am I the only one unable to stifle the tears welling up in my heart? It's dancing, the blood red flame, it's dancing, peering down from the hushed castle gate, the odor of water and the odor of sand, when the torch beating the sky, as if still hungering bites and tears at its own flesh, a solitary youth weighing with a darkened heart hurls his blue dream of yesterday into the river. Yet will the heartless wave suspend its shadow in the flow? There was never a flower that does not wilt once cut. Yet the thought of my love departed kills the life in my heart. What's to be done? Shall I burn this heart? Shall I slay this sorrow with that flame? Yesterday, again, dragging my aching feet, I went to her grave to find the flowers wasted by winter had given way to unforeseen blooms. Will love's spring ever return? I wonder. With my heart freely bared this night into this water, might someone take pity on me? Just then, tang tang, Roman candles burst, spewing fear blossoms, startled me back to my senses. The hub of the spectators seemed to mock me, to scold me. With ever deeper passion, I want to live, even submerged in smoke like you flames, Even in the agony of suffocating flames, I want to lead a fiery light, and the sudden throb of the heart is none but my own. When the warm April wind rushes across the river, high on the hill of Chongnu Tower by Moran Peak, a dusty crowd of people sways. With each burst of wind, the flame dye waves burn with mud, laughter. Spooked fish take cover in the sand. Waves lap the ships, broadside figures pace to and fro with a drowsy rhythm, flickering shadows, rising peals of laughter beneath lanterns hanging overhead. A child kissing warbles at the top of her voice, the fireworks igniting sudden lust now are tiresome. One glass, another glass, yet another, the endless wine no longer welcome, lying listless in the filthy bottom of a boat. Idle tears redden my eyes, weary of the incessant drumming. Men with leering eyes leap from the boat, unable to endure their rekindled desires, as the dying candles left behind those on the hems of rumpled skirts, the squeaking of the roars, as if the sound signified something, presses still harder on my heart.
Thank you, Mr. Kenneth James Julieta. Julieta. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome, ma'am.
So, as you can see, there's no refrain, right, of this poetry. Please answer me. The refrain verse or something rhythmical sentences, right? It's a freestyle. The intellectuals and poetry. Yes, thank you, Mary Rose Valdi. Thank you for answering me. So they try to destroy the formation of traditional poetry structure in order to show identity, Korean identity, because Koreans lost their nation. So intellectuals, poets tried to set up literature as a system, poetry as a way of restoring identity, Korean identity. And the one letter I would like to explain about the 기생 here. 기생, can you see it? 기생. It's a kind of job or position. A female performer and entertainer. It's not like a geisha in Japan. It's a kind of, but not like a geisha. So it's a kind of artist. Female artist group, we call it. And skip it. And Soul Kim, presenting Korean sentiment. We can read Soul Kim's poem Azalea. In Korean, 진달래꽃. It published in June of the magazine 개벽 in 2020. It's a short poem consisting of 4 consecutive lines and that depicts the heart of a woman who is spending a time with her living lover. And she believes her lover, living lover, will return soon to her, but she couldn't not hold her lover. Let's read it. It's short. Who is going to read this one?
Who wants to read this one? Yes, Miss Mary Rose Valde.
Oh, thank you.
Once again, good morning, everyone. So, Azalea, when you go away, sick of seeing me, I shall let you go gently, no words. From Mount Yak in Yongbyon, an armful of azaleas I shall gather and scatter on your path, step by step away on the flowers lying before you. Tread softly, deeply, and go. When you go away, of sick of seeing me. Though I die, no, I shall not shed a tear.
So
Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you so much, Madame Mary Rose Valdi. Thank you so much. So Azalis, it's show the image of separation or broke up scene of lovers. But the woman strongly believed her man will return, but the woman not speaks about the mind, speaks the mind to living her lover. So that's the show us a Korean sentiment at the moment, at that moment of a colonial aura. And another important poet, Yong-eun Han, is a monk. He was a monk, and he was independent activist against Japanese colonial colony. So Han Yong-eun's "Your Silence" could be mentioned as a revival of the country. This poem has 10 lines in 4 consecutive compositions, starting with a scene confirming a breakup with you, in Korean, 님. This poem actively depicts the waiting heart while signing the endless lover for 님. And also, 님 can be a symbol of king in Korean Empire, which was collapsed by Japanese government. So Your Silence has 2 slides. So who is going to read instead of me voluntarily, please? The lecture time is over, but can I use some more time
Yes,
to
Professor,
present?
you can have more time, maybe around
More?
10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Uh,
10 minutes, okay.
10 to 15 minutes, yes.
10 to 15, thank
So we
you.
can have a short open
Thank you so much. You might, I think I have to read this one. Okay. Your Silence. Oh, I began wrong. Okay, my turn. Okay. Your Silence. You have gone. Ah, you have gone, shattering the verdant brilliance of the mountain, hard as it might be, cutting off all ties, gone along the narrow path that opens out to the maple roof. The old vows, firm, splendid as flowers of golden metal, have turned to icy burst, and flown off in the breath of a sigh. The memory of a sharp first kiss reversed the compass needle of my fate, stepped backward and faded. I'm daffed by your perfumed sounds and blinded by your flower-like face. Love too is a man's lot, even if we have not neglected to prepare with the fear of parting at meeting. Parting comes upon us, awareness in the startled heart bursts with a fresh sorrow. However, since I know that to make parting the front of needless tears is to shatter one's own love, I transferred the uncontrollable power of sadness and poured it over my forelock to quench the old ill with a fresh hope. Just as we fear parting when we meet, we believe we will meet again when we part. Ah, even though you're gone, I have never said goodbye. The sad melody of my song of love curves around your silence. So, your silence is considered as a poem to miss the lost empire's king, and also as considered as a love poem to miss a lover. And the last policy, we will look at the last policy, national extermination policy. So at the moment, 창씨 개명 incident has happened. It was a forcible governing way to change from Korean names into Japanese names. So Joseon people cannot use any kinds of Korean and Korean names at the moment. After we have only 5 minutes left or 10 minutes left.
Around 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
Below, yeah.
Okay. This one is from movie 동주. It's an encyclopedia of poet Yun Dongju. The poet Yun Dongju wrote poems with shame that I'm a poet. I lost my country, but I have no choice but to write only poem. That's my shame. He think of it. He thinks like that. So to lose mother nation, to lose mother language, the Korean language. In 1930s, there is Lee Sang and Jung Ji-young were leading poets to write avant-garde modernist poem. So at the moment, many intellectuals and writers and poets tried to write poetry or literary articles in Korean. It's a kind of resistance action like that. So just skip. Jung Ji-young is the first modernist poet cited by famous critic Kim Gi-rim at the time. He had a wide range of poetic works, from Korean sentiment to avant-garde poetry and religious poetry and so on. So we're gonna read Window Pane first, one. So this poem expresses sadness of losing a child, losing a country, losing a Korean language. So who is going to read this one? Please,
Anyone for
anyone?
this poem? Can raise your hand, please. Oh,
Oh,
Miss Stacy. Miss Stacy.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me well?
Yes,
Yes,
we can hear you.
absolutely.
Window pane. In the glass something glimmers, cold and sad. I feebly stand there, my breath clothing it. My breath clothing it. Clouding. My breath clouding it. And it flutters its frozen wings as if tame. Rub at it, thought I may. Black night surges away, then back collides. Sudden stars sparkle, set like gems. Rubbing glass alone by night is lonely, rapturous contemplation, with the tender veins ruptured in your lungs. Ah, you have flown away like some wild bird.
Yes. So, and thank you so much, Madame Stacy Biak.
네, 선생님, 감사합니다.
Thank you so much. And also, at the moment, Isang wrote poems with awkward formation, awkward image. Like, for example, a standing human being, upper body is a woman, and the top body, the half of body is a woman, and half of body is a man, like that. In other poem. Now we will look at here in this presentation, wing from mirror. So Isang's Mirror is a poem that's surrealistic, depicts Koreans' fragmented consciousness during the colonial period through a mirror. So from 1910 to 1945, poets wrote our desperate situation under Japanese colonial rule, with destroying formation of poetry, with destroying images in the poetry. So a mirror is a kind of a way to show Koreans' fragmented consciousness with a surrealist way. Let's read. It has two slides. Who is going to read?
Who wants to read the poem? Anyone can raise your hand again. I think I saw another hand kanina.
Abigail.
Miss
Frank.
Abigail, okay.
Mirror. In the mirror, there is no sound. There is probably no world so quiet. In the mirror also are my eyes. Two pathetic ears are there unable to hear my words. In the mirror, I'm left-handed. Lefty that can take my handshake. Who doesn't know how to shake hands? Because of the mirror, I can't touch the mirrors. But if it were not a mirror, how could I have ever done something like meet myself in a mirror? I don't have a mirror in me now, but there's always an I in the depths of one. I am not sure, but he's probably sunk in some sinistral project. The I in the mirror is my real self's opposite, but also takes after me considerably. Unable to care for and examine the mirror's eye, I get very depressed.
Yes, thank you so much. When you look at a mirror instead of on by yourself, uh, into the mirror, there's no sound, and you cannot shake the hands with yourself, right? That's the scene of surrealistic poetic world. And from 45 and 53, Korea's liberation, at the moment, poets wrote poetry with a sense of scene. So I just skipped this part, but the dictator showed up, Seungman Lee, and Il-sung Kim for North Korea. For South Korea, Seungman Kim. You can see the two dictators. Left one is Seungman Lee, right one is Il-sung Kim. And post-war literature depict after the war, the poetry depicts the aspects of disastrous of situation and mental wounds and depression. We can examine Kim Seung's poetry and Park In-hwan's poetry. So, but I just mentioned Kim Soo-young. Kim Soo-young believed revolution can save the nation with freedom. So he tried to write. He tried to write poems with reality language in reality. So he wrote poets with real image with a common language. So we will read Grass. Grass was a work that represents the poet's later poetic world and was written shortly before his death. He died because of a transportation incident. And Grass consists of 3 consecutive compositions and 18 lines. And the Grass and Wind is kind of confrontational images. Grass is a symbol of a poor, oppressed people. Wind also a symbol of a dominant force suppressing the people as a dictator or dictatorship. So it's a short poem also. Who is going to read this one, please?
Anyone to read this poem?
I think I use a lot of time.
Yes, Miss Rose, Jean Romulo.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. The grass lies down, fluttered in the driving rain of the east wind, and now it lies, cries all the more for cloudy skies. Lies. The grass lies more quickly than the wind, cries more quickly than the wind, rises before the wind. On cloudy days, the grass lies to its ankles, to the soles of its feet, lies later than the wind, rises before it, cries later than the wind, flaps before it. On cloudy days, the roots lie.
Yes, thank you so much. So, Kim Seung's poem, you can see the vocabulary and sentence structure. It's a common usual we can use the wind vocabulary, wind or grass in common use, right? So easy vocabulary shows us deep meaning of life. And from 1963 and the 90s, two big magazines under pressure of censorship, 창작과 비평, 문학과 지성. And May 18th Gwangju Democratic Movement is a really important Korean modern history and also literature. Unfortunately, we have no time. Skip it. And lastly, we will examine labor poet Nohe Park. He was a labor and also poet. So how much is this one? As 2 slides. Who is going to read this poem?
Any volunteers? From
Me.
our participants?
May I? May I, ma?
Yes, Ma'am Elsa, is that you?
Okay, sige.
Sige po.
How much is this one? My cousin at the dye factory, who stutters, had his 10-year pension embezzled by a Middle East job broker and killed himself. If it's $1,000, my bedridden mother could be hospitalized. My 29-year-old maid sister could get hitched. If it's $10,000, I'd have to kiss ass for 10 years. How much is this one? $100,000 is a rainbow beyond a mountain past a river, of which I cannot conceive, even being born twice, kicking and screaming. My life is $4 for one day. How much is yours? They say our company president drinks $1,000 in a single night. They say it costs $5 to feed his puppy for a day. They say some Amazons got $300 million in the palm of her hand. My cousin at the dye factory killed himself for $1,200. And my little 16-year-old brother goes off to the factory and shit. Our lives, our loves, our existence. How much? How much?
Thank you so much. With poetry of Nohe Park, labor's condition, labor's working place condition can be a problematic to the world, to the Korean society. It represents labor's life condition. And after that, Korean modern poetry in 1990s considered as a crisis and transformation of the pace of cultural commercialization, emergence of multimedia, computer, and the internet. So there's more experimental attempt to make a poem. So thank you. Salamat. 감사합니다.